Welcome back. This is lesson 7F. In the next preview assignment and in the next class, we are going to compare incarceration rates in the United States to rates in the other countries. We're going to be interpreting percentages and proportions in this lesson. Recall that percentages are proportions. They're proportions out of 100. Sometimes we study events so rare that a proportion out of 100 is inconvenient or it's not even appropriate. For example, in 2017, the infant mortality rate in the United States was 5 8/10 deaths of infants less than 1 year old. 5 8/10 deaths of infants less than 1 year old per 1,000 live births. Per 1,000 live births. And this was expressed as a percentage. This would be the rate of. So we take the 5 8/10, put it over the 1,000. When we divide and multiply by 100, we get a number that is less than 1%. Some health statistics are stated as proportions out of 100,000. For example, the United States Centers for Disease Control reported that in the United States in 2015, there were 197 2/10 deaths from heart disease per 100,000 residents. Converting this to a percentage, we would put the 197.2 over 100,000, divide, multiply by 100, and we get this, which is very small, not even close to even a fourth of 1%. Since some people have difficulty distinguishing between what is this and what is this, and that they are not the same, it can be confusing to report small percentages. Also, very rare events such as 1 in 100,000. Reporting the ratio out of 100,000. Let me start that sentence over. Also, for very rare events such as rates of 1 in 100,000, reporting the ratio out of 100,000 helps to avoid numbers with lots of placeholding zeros after the decimal point. This is a great time to hit pause and go complete even all 5 of the questions, or at least complete question 1. And when you're finished, come back and start working through this with me. So question number 1, according to the CDC, the death rate due to opioid drug poisoning in the United States was 16.3 or 16 3/10 out of 100,000 residents. Part A, express this ratio as a percentage and don't round your answer. So if this is a ratio of 16.3 out of 100,000, I'm going to grab calculator, or you can do some decimal moving. Multiple ways you can accomplish this. I'll go ahead and stay with my pattern of 16.3 divided by 100,000. What appears on my screen is they asked us not to round the answer, so there we have it. Oh, as a percentage. Always read your final answer, or what your final answer is supposed to be. When I multiply this decimal by 100, I get a final answer of tenths, hundreds, thousandths, 10,000ths. It's 163 10,000ths of 1%. So looking at part B, it says the United States population in 2015 was approximately 321 million. Based on the previous statistic from the CDC, approximately how many Americans died of opioid drug poisoning in 2015, and they do want us to round our number. Here is the death rate due to the drug poisoning, the opioid drug poisoning. It's not funny trying to say it's funny. And so to find this number, we're going to ask or to calculate what is this percentage of 321 million in the population. When I go to punch this in my calculator, I'm going to go ahead and divide this by 100 again to get me back to this number. and then I'll multiply that number times my 321 million. So I've got 0.000163 times 321, 0.00000 equals, and they want us to round to the nearest whole number, and I'm getting 52,323 Americans died from opioid poisoning. A reminder, if you haven't already stopped the video, to go ahead and do question 2 or questions 2 through 5, go ahead and stop. You work on question 2A, parts A and B, and then come back and we'll work on them together. According to the CDC, approximately this percent of the United States population died due to motor vehicle injuries in 2015. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, so 117 10,000ths of a percent of the population died due to these vehicle-related injuries. Part A. On Part A, let's express this ratio as a proportion out of 100,000. I'm going to work through this one way. You can do the same. You can Google, search the internet and find ways that you would prefer to do this. But here is a way to start getting this as a proportion out of 100,000. So in the end, I want to have a proportion that looks like this out of 100,000. I'm going to start with what I know. I know that I have this tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 117 10,000ths of a percent. I also know that I'm trying to get to not a number with 2 zeros, but a number with 5 zeros. To do that, I can multiply the numerator and the denominator by 1,000. That will give me in the denominator a 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. So my denominator's there. I just need to adjust the numerator. I can multiply in my calculator. I can use the fact that I have 3 zeros. I get 3 decimal moves. And so what we're looking at is 11.7 or 11 7/10, where are we? Deaths for every 1,000 residents. And I don't need this because I'm already there. Part B, the United States population in 2015 was approximately 321 million people. Based on the previous statistic from the CDC, approximately how many Americans died of motor vehicle related injuries in 2015? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. I can either use the number that I just calculated, or I can go back, and that's what I want to do. I'm going to convert this to a decimal, which means I move my decimal over 2 places. So I have 0.00, and that looks so ugly. I don't even know what I have. So I'll start here. Per 100, move it over 2 spaces. So I need 3 zeros and a 117. No. That percent written as a decimal times 321 million. I'm going to grab a calculator. I'm going to punch in 0.000117 times 321 000,000, and when I hit equals, I get the number of 37,557. What in the world does that number represent? So they're asking how many Americans died from motor vehicle related injuries. So 37,557 Americans died from vehicle related injuries. Continuing on to question number 3. As we noted earlier, the infant mortality in the United States in 2017 was 5.8 deaths per 1,000 live births. And I understand that the data that we talk about can be very sensitive, and we are using the data to do mathematics because it's real life. So insensitivity is not intentional, it's not at all desired, I'm just trying to talk about real numbers. Part of those real numbers are there are deaths. And this one in particular is talking about 5.8 deaths for every 1,000 live births. They want us to express this as a ratio out of 100,000. In doing so, I'm going to have to multiply something so that my 1,000 becomes not a 1 with 3 zeros, but a 1 with 5 zeros. So let me multiply in 100, and that will satisfy my need for the denominator to be 1 and 5 zeros. For my numerator, what I'll need to do is multiply on a calculator, or go ahead and move that numerator over 2 spaces, 2 decimal places, and I get 580 deaths out of 100,000 live births. Question number 4 continues with, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the United States violent crime rate was reported as 21 1/10 per 1,000 people ages 12 or over in 2016. Express the meaning of this ratio in a complete sentence. You could write something like, for every 1,000 United States residents aged 12 or over in 2016, there were 21.1, 21 1/10 violent crimes. So write something like that, and you've already written something, so you can adjust it to add more details or leave it alone. Question next, part B, the same report states that there were 5.7 million violent crimes, and I hope you're also underlining and highlighting on your papers and practicing this for the next test, committed against residents over age 12 or over in 2016. How many million United States residents age 12 or over were there in 2016, and round your answer to the nearest million. Okay, hang on. 5.7 are the amount of crimes, and we've been talking about part and whole, and we've been talking about ratios. The 5.7 crimes are part of, where am I looking? How many, the residents, the number of residents. So the crimes committed are the part, and the residents are the whole. So I'm going to I'm going to take 5.7 million. Let's see if we can do this with the word million out of I don't know how many million, because they're asking us to round to the nearest million. And that is the same as the rate that was reported above, that 21.1, like we were saying in the meeting, residents out of 1,000 residents reported this crime. Looking at this ratio, actually a proportion with 2 ratios, what we can do is we can multiply the 5.7 million times 1,000, and on the other side we get our 21.1x. And let's go ahead and see what happens. I'm going to type in 5.7 times 1,000 equals, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 21.1. And what I'm getting is not what I got when I worked it earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and try this again. 5.7 times 1,000 equals. I'm going to divide it by 21.1. Now I'm getting what I got earlier. So that is worth an x of 270, because it said round to the nearest million. So it's actually 270 million residents. If all of these statistics are true, we can go backwards, if you will, and calculate if this many people reported violent crimes, then and 21.1 of 1,000 or were the ones impacted in 2016, we can go backwards or solve algebraically that there were 270 million residents age 12 or over in 2016. Finally, and very similarly, question 5 asks or starts by saying, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the United States property crime rate was reported in their statistics as 119.4 or 119 and 4/10 per every 1,000 households in 2016. Express the meaning of this ratio in a complete sentence. And something along the lines of what you could write would be, for every 1,000 United States households in 2016, there were 119 and 4/10 property crimes. On part B, it says, if there were 133 million households in the US in 2016, how many crimes were there? This one's just exactly opposite, if you will, from what we did on 4. On 4, they were asking us to find the households given the number of violent crimes. In this case, they're giving us the number of households and asking us to find the number of violent crimes. So again, thinking about part and whole, in the last question, we didn't know the whole amount of households they were talking about, or people over the age of 12. But this time we do know the number of households. What we don't know are the part, or is the part, which are the number of crimes. So I'm going to start by saying we don't know the number of property crimes, but we do know that there were 133 million households, and that's the same as 119.4 of the property crime rates. These are the crimes out of every 1,000 households. Well, we're going to work this one the same way we did the last one. We're going to do some cross multiplication, and we're going to get that x times 1,000 is the same as 119 and 4/10 times 133 million. Just don't forget we've got this million over here. With that being said, I'm going to grab my calculator. I'm going to multiply it clear a couple of times. 119.4 times 133 equals, divided by 1,000, and they want us to round to the nearest million. So on my screen, I see this, and nearest million would mean nearest unit. The 8's going to mean that my 15 becomes a 16, and in reality, it's 16 million. So the question being, how many property crimes were there? There were 16 million property crimes. This finishes our lesson 7F. I need you to look at your calendar to see if you have more lessons to complete for this week.